Ben Richmond performing on the piano in a moment. Where is Ben Richmond anyway? Ben Richmond, where'd he go? Oh, here he comes. And here he is. Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Web Business Diva, singing the praises of people who have a passion for their work. I'm Dr. Sharon Livingston, and my passion is to spotlight wonderful people who have created amazing careers for themselves that really benefit other people. And when I met Dr. Ross, Dr. Jolene Ross right here, who is the president of Advanced Neurotherapy in, what is it?
Needham.
Needham, in Needham, Massachusetts. When I met her several months ago, one of my first thoughts was that I wanted you to be on my show. So, and the reason is because you provide such an incredible service to our community and have made a huge difference in people's lives. And so, neurofeedback and advanced neurotherapy. So first of all, what is neurofeedback?
Neurofeedback is a safe and easy way to teach the brain to improve what it does.
Well, why would I want to do that?
Well, most people have a little bit of glitches in their brains, and as I always say, who wouldn't want a better
You've
brain?
been reading my diary.
This is a tough culture to live in. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure for performance, and there's also, we're very good at messing up the brain in this culture. And so the better your brain functions, the better you function. And so my passion is really to help people have their brains function better so that they can function better and lead fuller, happier, more productive lives.
Tell me a little bit about how you came to this. What is your personal story? How did this happen? How did you discover that you're a psychologist?
I'm a psychologist.
And I mean, I'm a psychologist,
Right.
and I don't do brain therapy. I don't know what I do sometimes, but
You do this. This is part of what you do.
and I do talk therapy. I don't do scans.
Well, I started out doing talk therapy. I was a behaviorist long before behaviorism was considered standard and accepted, actually. And I actually started my career as a teacher. And I absolutely am passionate about children and passionate about teaching children, about children having full and happy lives. And I knew that there were some things that were kind of blocking them from that. So as a teacher, I moved into psychology. I got a PhD in psychology from Boston College, and I started seeing children, special needs children.
How come?
Why? Because I'm a kid person, and because it just, well, partly because it drew me, and partly because, I think because of my family history. In my family, when I was 7 years old, my father got encephalitis.
Oh my gosh.
And that was tremendously disruptive for him neurologically. He was never able to work again. My brother has Asperger's disorder. My mother has what we call the shadow syndrome, which is Asperger's but functional, as in, you know, I mean, she was a physician, which actually was perfect for someone with Asperger's, but she, I mean, I was the one, if you know what I'm saying. And I was also very passionate about children. I always loved children, and I always loved learning. I was always very excited about that. Well, ultimately, I had my own children, and one of my children, when I brought her to school in 2nd grade, I was told that she had the worst ADD of anyone they had ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
And I should get her on Ritalin immediately. She was worse than the worst person on Ritalin. Well, I had a specialty in behavioral medicine, so that wasn't going to be the first place I went. That doesn't mean
also,
I wouldn't do it. But
from what I know of you, you really enjoy taking a more natural approach to health, and you want to be holistic about it, so that must have been horrible for you to hear.
Well, what it was a challenge. And I was on the board of directors of a group of professionals who did behavior therapy, and there was someone in my area that was doing neurofeedback. I knew because I was reading the newspaper, and I invited her to speak. And at the time, there was someone at McLean Hospital who was doing this as well. We were meeting at McLean Hospital.
And that's down in Massachusetts.
And that person was there also. And basically at that time, the technology was about, okay, it's going to take an academic year, and you're really not doing it for this year, you're doing it for the changes next year, and that sort of thing. So I took her for treatment, and I was very curious, and I wanted to know, well, would this be helpful for the kind of clients that I'm seeing? At the time, I was mostly seeing adults. And I wanted to know, does this help people with depression? Does it help people with bipolar? Does it help people with anxiety? You know, I'm asking all these questions.
And we know the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, absolutely. Well, what ultimately happened is this person left the area, and this other person wasn't doing it anymore, and there was no one around. So I went and got the training because my daughter started to lose her benefit. That doesn't happen in our practice. But
well, how come she lost it?
She wasn't being seen frequently enough. And then this person said, take the summer off. We don't tell people to do that. Because this is a learning task. It's like learning a motor skill. So if you want to become a really good golfer or a really good pianist like your nephew, you're not going to practice every 2 weeks and then take the summer off. It's not going to work. You're not going to learn, and you're not going to get good at it. So that's not how we work. So I got the training, and it ended up not only helping her, but then it took over my practice. And then it took over my house, and then it took over my family, and it became a family business because it just grew and grew and grew. And my goal was to provide this service to whoever wanted it. So my goal was, okay, we're going to grow this business as much as the universe wants us to, without in any way jeopardizing the quality of our results.
And so what exactly is it actually? I mean, what is neurofeedback? How does that work?
Well, the way it works is we monitor the brain waves, and we that information goes to an amplifier, and then it goes to a screen, And we look at that screen and we set the parameters to reward a mix of brainwaves that, based on our assessments, we expect will improve functioning. And then it's all about reward. It's like teaching your dog to sit. I call them brain yummies. It's all about reward. It's a very safe way to teach the brain. So what happens is when the brain is doing what we want in all of the locations that we're teaching at one time, there's a reward. And it's usually a change on the computer screen and a simultaneous sound. If we make it too exciting, then we're driving the brain into a much more involved state. And what we want is we want the brain to learn how to get itself into that state. Because the problem is that brains either have a tendency to be inactive in various places and therefore can't do the control stuff they ought to be able to do.
So let's give a very specific example so people know exactly what we're talking about. The way that I learned about you was I was wanting to help someone in my family who was on the autistic spectrum, who still is on the autistic spectrum, but is so different now in his functioning. And so I had spoken with another physician who said, you know, if you want to do something fantastic for that little boy, bring him to Dr. Ross because she can train him to stop some behaviors that are getting him in trouble in school. And this is a little 8-year-old boy. And so talk about how that works. You know, what happened? We brought him in and what happened? Well, I know, but they don't.
The first thing that happened is I did an intake. So an intake is all about what are your goals? What is it that you want to be different? What's the history? And what's this person like? Lots and lots of questions about current functioning so that I get a really good sense of, so what is going on with this brain? What's the history of this brain inside this person and so forth? And where are we headed? The next thing that happens is I do an EEG, we call it a brain map. It's electronic. We use a cap, and I attach, I get these sensors so that the sensors all work the way we want them to work, so we have a good connection.
And I happen to have a whole bunch of slides here,
yes,
which I'm going to show you right here, right now, but we're going to have them up on the screen for people. So here's a typical kind of map, or I don't know what you would call that, a brainwave.
Well, these are brainwaves, and what we do is I do that. I collect data, this information, through this cap that's attached to my computer, and I have the person do various things. We call it various states. So I have them with their eyes closed, relaxed, and in this case, this is someone with their eyes closed, relaxed. I have them read, I have them do math, I have them watch a silent video that pulls for social competence, which is really important for people on the spectrum, for instance. If there are reading issues, then I have them do something that helps pull for reading.
And I remember we did a whole bunch of different...
We did a whole bunch of things.
Like math and reading and social interaction.
Yeah,
and
different states.
Comprehension and...
Yeah. Because we want to know, can the brain turn itself on? Can the brain control its own state? And if it can't, then where are the problems and what kind of problems are there? So in this particular slide, what we're seeing is, go back, what we're seeing is someone whose brain kind of goes along, twiddling along, so to speak, with the brain waves. Everything's going fine. All of a sudden, the brain waves get really, really huge.
Right in the middle, I see.
Right in the middle there. And when that happens, that is a moment of inactivity, significantly reduced activity. And that's when the brain is unable to process the information